loud and clear.
I'm on good internet. We got on here. Is Josh on here yet?
Let me check participants. Josh, looks like Josh is on. Mic's muted, camera's muted. There is a Josh on here.
Josh Osteen?
No Josh Osteen.
Okay, I just found the list for it.
Oh, there he is. Just popped in.
We'll give everybody about 5 minutes to get in before we get into it, because we're going to jump in and just kind of plow through it real quick.
Roger that. I'm going to go ahead and mute for a second, go grab a water.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Cal.
Buddy, what's going on?
Out running around like crazy today.
Yeah, it rained in Galveston like it hadn't rained in a long, almost like it did Harvey. Luckily, it didn't last as long, but it got pretty bad.
Yeah, we had that yesterday. Didn't do so bad today, but it rained. We were in Tomball, and it rained so bad that I didn't know if we were going to get to leave Tomball yesterday.
Now, just as a prelude, Joshua, this is the correct policy, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, and your specific question is, if they don't require the 30-day deal on our option, the section of the policy, correct?
Well, yes, and I will go ahead and forward this with that Ben Brown came in talking about, commented after all of this and said that, you know, here in Texas, we have the Bill of Rights that which I know would supersede the policy language, which gives the insured the right to choose their own contractor, which would negate any R option or rights to repair.
Okay, so in other words, you're in agreement.
Well, I mean, in the technicality of like,
let me make clear. I'm gonna make it clear either way. This is going to be a wonderful exercise. We're going to run down through this policy, and we're just going to highlight some specific things that are going on and specific things. And what people must understand is this document. That's why I was so, and that's why I was so blown away with the deal. I didn't demand it sooner. We're going through all of this shit and we don't need to. All I need to do is get the policy. Where's the policy at? Once we get the policy, then we can look at it and say, okay, this is the governing document. And the only way that this document can be superseded is if it violates a state statute. But there are even exceptions to that, because state statutes of limitations is 2 years. But the insurance industry's carved out a niche where if they install in the policy, they can reduce that to 1 year. So in that effect, then it would actually be that they have a lesser than what the statute requires, but there is a carve out for that. Does that make sense?
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and jump in. Somebody's got a lot of background. Yeah. Let's wait for Joseph. He was on here early.
I forgot to turn my camera back on. I'm sitting right here. My bad.
There you are.
Yeah, if everybody hits their mute button on their microphones, that'd probably help with that feedback.
Okay. Yeah, and just use your microphone. Keep your microphone muted, and I try to keep everybody where you've got free reign and you got a question, you can stop. But here's what I'll guarantee you. If you give it a second, the whole thing can't be explained by one page. And the whole thing can't be explained by one session. The whole thing can't be explained in any one setting. What's going to happen, what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to go through here. And if you have a question, kind of hold the question till the end, because what's probably going to happen is that we're going to answer it as we get through. If we stop a lot during the actual going through of it as I'm explaining, then what'll happen is we won't get very far. So I want to try to get through a bunch of key areas to show you a couple of things that's going on. And, you know, Joshua brought up a good point as soon as we started. You know, he had been advised by somebody else that he trusted to look at a couple of things. And when he did, he changed the outlook on what was going on. But the policy is going to be a good document, and it's going to be the contract. Now, that document's going to be legal all the way until it isn't. And I'll give you a simple, for instance. It says, give to us all of your documents when we request after a loss. The bland statement of give to us all of our documents would lead any person to believe that anything that they asked you, that you should give to them. But I'll debunk the whole thing in a really quick session. Unless it's an arson, unless it's a fire and they believe it's arson and that the insured is involved, they have absolutely no right to your tax returns. But if they ask you for something and their policy kind of leaves it open to what the interpretation is, and you give it to them, it doesn't matter if they deserved it or not. They now have it. Does that make sense? Okay, so now I'm going to run down through and just look at the deck page simply on this policy, and I'm going to point out a couple of things. Number one, these people don't have enough contents coverage. They've got a deduction for some reason over there, but 6530. Not sure what that is or why. But if they've got a $400,000 house, I guarantee you $181,000 is nowhere even close. That's the biggest, the most undervalued thing that I've seen across the board is contents. Nobody ever has enough contents coverage. The coverage now was based off of way long time ago when people didn't have near as expensive items inside of their home. Those numbers have never come up and coincided when oftentimes when we look at what we have inside of the house, it's worth more than what the house is. All of our personal stuff, things that we've gathered over our lifetimes, you know, that money can put back, it can't replace, but you need enough to cover it. Okay, I want to skip real quick and look at section 1 deductibles. All other peril deductibles, 1%. For 1% of a reduction in their premium, they agreed that they would pay $4,030 in the event of a loss for $9.97. If you understand what that means, it means for $10 discount, you took a 1% deductible that would declare that the first $4,000 is yours. How long would it take you on an annual basis to recover what you would lose? Now, that is only magnified when you go to the wind and hail.
Yeah, it would take you 40 years.
Yes. Okay, you get a little bit better of a deal here with the 2%, but there's no way that either one of them could compensate for what you're going to lose here.
Absolutely.
Now, if you live in an area that doesn't have, you don't have losses often, you know, that's something that you may want to look at. But if you live in Dallas, Fort Worth, any of the hail-prone situations, the hurricane places, then those things, if you have the option to go under that, then this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, let's look at the second part of that. Look at all the studies. Google the simple phrase, how many Americans can afford $1,000 in the event of a loss? When you Google that simple phrase, it's going to come up, and the average consensus on that number, as long as the studies have been going on, is about 40% of the United States citizens can afford $1,000 in the event of a loss. That means that 60 people cannot. Would you agree with me that an insurance claim is an emergency? And if that is the case, we look at those deductibles, and that is 4 times the number 60% of the population can afford. Now, the reason that I'm going over these things is I'm trying to get you to understand that the performance of the policy, the deductible is one of them. If you don't perform all of the policy, not just part and parcel, the whole damn thing, if you don't perform that whole part of the policy, then you have no right to claim coverage, and you absolutely have no right to sue. They've made it this way so that you don't have the ability to sue them. This is why you hear bad faith over and over again on every forum. The ones we run the same. Oh, that's clear bad faith. It's not, because they designed it that way. They designed it to where the insured cannot possibly perform unless they go through this whole mound of shit to get there. I've never, to this day in my whole career, and we've done so many claims, it's unreal, been involved in so many claims, it's unreal, met an insured that could properly follow the policy from the deck page all the way down to where the coverage applies. I heard somebody say today, you go out there and try to keep a property under a co-insurance clause. That's ridiculous, and it's fraud against the insurance company. And you're not only complicit in it, but as a licensed professional, you're absolutely prohibited from it, and it's also a felony. If the insurance company was owed so much dollars back if they were owed 1 penny back in the co-insurance that they weren't supposed to pay, that's illegal. Not only is it illegal, but you make yourself a huge target, and you will never stand up in a court of law when it comes to expert testimony. So all of these things are imperative that we do. We read the policy and we do our job, and whatever that loss is whatever it is. And that has to be the ultimate answer. I don't care who did what, how they did it, whatever's going on. What we need to know is what the damages are. Once we have all of the damages down, then we can pull the policy apart and say, okay, here's where all of the coverage applies or doesn't apply. Okay. As you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this whole thing. There is no, and we don't need to go through a bunch of stuff that I've already looked at. There's no managed repair program endorsement on this policy. This policy is a standard Texas policy. One of the standard Texas policies. There's so many now that it's hard to say, but they all roughly read the same thing. The next thing that we're going to look at. Go ahead.
I'll be up in a minute, baby.
Okay, now
I'm on a Zoom call.
the original policy.
Yeah, well, I can't.
Mute your mic.
Off the call.
Mute your mic, buddy. Whoever that is. iPhone. Okay. The original policy was 165 lines. We now have policies that are absolutely massive. Okay, if we look at this deal right here, each one of these is a change that's going on with the policy. Now, what I'll represent to you is that all of this coverage existed in the original 165 line policy. And for the most part, it still exists in the policy today, but they've shrouded it in non-coverage. For instance, we don't cover mold. Okay, nobody asked you to cover mold. Who files a claim for mold? Nobody, because it's an excluded, and this is key, covered cost of loss. Where did the mold originate from? Mold just doesn't pop up on its own and start growing. The covered cause of loss, once that's established and it's there, the mold endorsement has no teeth whatsoever because it was caused by a covered loss. The question would simply be, but for the loss, would this mold be there? And if that answer is no, then absolutely that mold is covered in its entirety, and there's not, and this ties right in. When they put a mold endorsement on the policy and get an insured to purchase that mold endorsement and put a $5,000 cap on, putting the $5,000 cap on there allowed them to cap something at $5,000 that they don't have a right. So they're doing it on face value. And how many people are fighting them on these claims where they do this at? Less than, I would say 5% is a very, very conservative number of how many claims actually get a licensed public adjuster or a attorney or a competent contractor was able to get some kind of a negotiation that was close. The numbers are staggering about how many of these claims don't get anybody to do anything to them, and the insurance company doing by what they're doing now. Remember, law of large numbers. They are literally treating everybody the way that they want to do that. Okay. I said all that to expand on. There's a couple of things as we get further on. All of this paperwork makes the policy burdensome. that the policy was always meant to have been something where the common person can look at it, read it, comprehend it, understand it, and digest it into what they're supposed to be doing. That was the purpose of the 165 line. We've gotten so far away from the 165 line that it's unreal. And most of it, the majority of it, is gibber jabber. We've done the, hey, mute that microphone right quick. You're killing us. I could probably mute him. There he is. Never mind. I got him. I forgot I got the control over here. Look at that shit. All right. The 165 line covered everything that you would think was covered. What they've done is piece by piece, link by link, if you will, like a dog's chain, pulling one chain ever so often away from that dog and getting to a point where it's absolutely choked and it has no idea how it got there. How did I end up at the end of this rope? Little by little. The policy and what they've done is an attack from all sides. And as we start to look into the policy just a little bit more, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time, but we're going to look at a few things that prove unequivocally that what they have in here is cannon fodder. It's stuff to confuse you on what you're supposed to be looking at so that you never really understand. And it's repetitive. It's over and over. You see the same information from one section to the next section to the next section. The worst part of that is you don't need any but the 165 line. So it's mass confusion. And it's telling you that we don't owe. And then at the very bottom of each of these portions, it says unless, which is a crucial word, unless we do owe. So the whole paragraph above was telling you that they didn't owe for it until they got down at the bottom and said that they do. Okay, let me go to page 16. Let me see here. Okay, if we look at this and we look at that inflation guard's been a big deal for me since we did the fires out in Possum Kingdom, because a lot of those houses were multi-million-dollar houses and they still didn't have enough insurance to put them back together. There was no workers. There was a whole bunch of shit going on. So they didn't have the money, and we went everywhere that we could. And we found the inflation guard in State Farm and made them pay a considerable amount more over it. What's important here is that if we go back up to the deck page, where's it at? Coverage A, inflation guard. See their limit here? That says 2%. Okay, then we jump back down to page 16, which is the actual inflation guard endorsement. See what it says right there? 4%. That's a significant amount of money on any property, no matter what it is, because the way that it's raised is that both A and all of the coverages are based upon the structure value. Everything is based upon that value until you get into personal contents with specific items, jewelries, rings, antiques, and things of that nature. The inflation guard, when it increases the actual structure, then every single limit under it, every sublimit under that increases as well. So in Texas, we're typically at other structures 10%. Florida's like 5% is a normal that you're seeing. When I went to Tennessee, they had some shit like 1% and 2%, which is ridiculous. People had 4 or 5 sheds out there, and even which they should have had scheduled differently. But even, at 10%, the normal coverage, then you've got 10% of the value of your home. But then all of the other additional coverages were put at 10% as well. But what I'm pointing out is that you need to read the damn policy. How would I have known that the policy says that it's 4% when the deck page tries to say something else? The deck page is not the governing contract. It's only the declarations page. And sans another limit here that says otherwise, that's the ruling authority right there, is that 4%. And why do I say it's the ruling authority? Because it's in the fucking contract. If you don't like cussing, I shouldn't be in here. But my whole point of this endeavor tonight is to make sure that you understand that the contract is not your enemy. This is the people call it a policy, but that's another softening of the terms. This is your best friend. This is what, if this is followed to a T, this is what puts the insurance company in a position to actually get caught for bad faith. Why? Because the insured performed 100%. Now, when we look at those deductibles and we look at how vast they are at 4,000, when we go to hurricane hit area, when we go to any catastrophe areas, and I love chasing catastrophes, that's what I'm, my best part. When we do that, when we sit down and we talk with the insured, when we do that initial interview and do the scope, one of the first questions who cleaned all this mess up? Well, my sister came over and her husband and my mom and dad were here and Buddy brought his truck over and we just loaded everything and got it up. Yeah. How many people was that? And we start logging that down because guess what? Would they have been doing that had it not been for the storm? Answer is no. They're out there cleaning up storm debris. So that stuff has to be logged and has to be paid for from the insurance company. And when it is, and we start to look, we're not talking about anybody profiting. These people went out and they say, well, this is your house. You should do that. Bullshit. That's what I bought the insurance for in case this stuff happened, that I wouldn't be out here having to do this without being compensation, because we can put it another way. If you hired Johnny construction crew out there and he came out there and did all of the cleanup and put you an invoice, would they then owe for it? Absolutely, because that's mitigating not only the damages, but the liability of the insurance company. If you have fence pickets laying around with nails all over it, you've got construction debris, and the child from next door tries to come over, trips and puts their hand through it and goes to the hospital, guess what? Shit just got real bad for you. Now they're going to go to your insurance company, which means them, but you're supposed to mitigate. And when they say mitigate, that's specifically what it means. Okay, let's jump down to.
Hey, Cal, while you're looking, I'd like to elaborate on that for just a second too,
Go
so
ahead.
people can really understand how far that goes. If you have a simple loss and you're mop up water because of that loss, that time is still valuable. They should not have to lift a finger or lose any time or effort in a loss. So you have them tell you how long did it take, and you should be including that in your estimates.
But you have a choice. If you can do the dry out, if you can do the cleanup, if you can do whatever, you can do that. And they would owe you just like they would owe anybody else. If those skills are not yours and you don't want to do it, then the policy says you hire somebody, get the receipts, and we're going to pay you back. Not only did they say it, they demanded it in that very same contract that if you don't do it, and they're correct. If you allow shit to get way worse, and they're not always wrong. If you sit over there and watch the kitchen sink leak, if you sit there and put a bucket under it and did all kinds of stuff and let the bucket come over, and then you filed a claim 6 months later, that's bullshit. Yeah, we would only owe you, I, or anybody else would only want to pay the part where you should have notified us and let us know that the damage was there. And all of this shit that's down in the rest of 3/4 of the house would have never happened. That's a valid point. However, if you have grandma that never goes in there and cleans the bottom of the sink, and she has no idea that she has a leak under there until she one day cleans out under the sink and finds rust on the bottom of a bottle, and that is the date of discovery. All of that stuff could not have been known until that day. Nobody could be accused of saying, hey, you wait, let this go on forever. It's a long-term leak. Be that as it may, the original cause of loss was a sudden burst. It was a plumbing system. The design of the plumbing system is to keep everything on the inside, everything on the outside. If anything from the inside escapes to the outside, that means that that's a burst. It doesn't have to be 60 feet in the air, geyser that's shooting off water. All it has to do is penetrate the plumbing system from the inside and escape to the outside. That's it. And then the date of discovery would be when it was covered. But if you listen to them, that's a whole different aspect. Okay, let's move down to page 17. Hold on.
Hey, Cal, before you jump into the next page, if I can throw something out there on this.
Go ahead.
And again, this may not ring true in Texas. Up north and on the East Coast, You're starting to see when you get these policies, sometimes pay attention, look through them, read the whole policy, because you're going to find that there's going to be missing pages out of order, or they may not give you the whole entire policy. We're seeing a lot of Allstate claims come through where the policies are only 28 pages and they're saying, here's a certified policy. So make sure you're paying attention to all the carriers, learn how long the policies are, count those endorsements, and make sure they're all there in all the pages. State Farm's doing it all the time with us right now.
Are you trying to say you have to have a front office? Joseph, is that what you're claiming, that you got to have a front office?
100%.
Going through all of the documents and counting and absorbing, and yeah, that's
100%. Yes, absolutely. You got to spend the money and you got to have somebody going through it. There's no other way around it.
And I'll give another little tidbit that we do. We always want the policy, if the insured has it, one of the first, we send over a packet, a welcome packet, and this is what we need from you. If you have a copy of that policy, give it to us. If you don't, email your agent right quick, have them send you a copy in the email. And about 80% of the time, they send over the endorsements only. And when they send it over, the insured forwards it to me. This is not the policy. This is the endorsements. If you look at the top, it says very clearly, please read this. It changes your policy. So we need the policy to see where the endorsements apply and how they apply, and if they even apply correctly, because they often don't. So at that case, then I tell them, hey, email the agent back and ask them very clearly, is this my entire policy? The agent will, more times than not, email back angry. I've been doing this for 25 years. Yes, that's your complete policy. We'll file a complaint on that agent ASAP. Why? This dumb son of a bitch doesn't even know what a policy looks like. And he's did it twice in writing, which is an actionable offense with the Department of Insurance. He's telling them that this is their entire policy when it's not, which means that this cat's never even seen the policy. If he would understand that when you send me a document that's 12 pages long and tell me that it's a policy, I'll tell you right now, we got a problem. That is not enough paperwork to be a full policy. It is more than likely the endorsements. If we look at this typical policy here, we'll pop right back up there.
Yeah,
That's endorsements and exclusions right there. That's not policy, that's endorsements. And we look right here, that every single one of them is an endorsement that some way, some shape or fashion, they have attempted to change the policy. That doesn't mean that they're going to be successful. And your job as a public adjuster is to, when you see this shit and you see the bullshit that doesn't jive with what you know to be right, you push forward. Get it into the hands of an attorney, because it will never change until we get it in a courtroom. They have no intention of doing anything different. Now I say that, but they also understand that we're onto them. If you notice in since we really started teaching the boot camp heavily, there has been a shift in what the carriers are doing. They're trying to keep people from going out and adjusting claims on their side. You go out there, you take the photographs, you document, you do whatever, but you don't make any deals. You don't take any estimate. You send that shit back into me and I'll do it here. What you're seeing them is shifting back to where they're actually supposed to have been. They were never supposed to be the ones out there doing what they're doing now. They are the people that owe the damn money. You've got the guy owing you the money coming out telling you, hey, do we even owe you? Nah, that's Mo. We don't cover that. Or if we do owe you, then, hey, we only owe you $3,900 and dadgummit, your deductible's $4,000. We don't, need another dollar to come up before we pay you. Or that damage is not nowhere near what you think it is. But if the
sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Back to your when the homeowner does a cleanup on a water spill, how is that an exactimate, or how would I bill for that? Because I have that exact issue right now.
Well, what you typically would do is ask the insured what they did and document that. If they went in there with a couple of people and they weren't experts, they did whatever, then you would do general labors, clean it up. If they were experts and they had machines and they had stuff that was going in there and actually drying it out properly, then they would be paid that way. The contract says that you must attempt to mitigate. It doesn't say that you gotta be successful. It's like putting a patch on the roof.
The general labor is what I would use. Thank you.
So if I can interject on that real quick, Cal, because I was going to touch base on that at the end. And exactimate under the carrier profile, they have it in there, whatever profile you're using, but there's actually a spot where you can put in these line items and you can click contractor or homeowner pricing in exactimate now. And I don't know how long it's been there for. I don't recall exactly when it started, but it is an option.
Look at that shit. The homeowner, they're going to try to take all of the liberties. More than likely, what the homeowner had to do is go buy some shit, go grab something, go grab stuff that they didn't typically have, make the trips, do whatever. They deserve the overhead and profit and the time to do whatever that's supposed to be doing. I'm not separating that shit out of there. You do you up there, Maryland. But here,
Well, it
I'm
depends on the
saying is
situation.
that no matter whether they were a contractor or not, even if they're not a contractor, it's even more burdensome because they don't have all of this shit. They have to go do all of the stuff to go bring this stuff in, and I believe it's even more difficult. But the carriers are sure like you when you use that homeowner deals. They gave that for their adjusters in the field.
It depends on the loss and what took place.
Let's go a little deeper into that.
Yeah.
It means that they absolutely understand that they're supposed to do what?
Pay overhead and profit. So it's going to get to that too.
Compensate the homeowner. See what this literally wraps right back around to what I was just saying, because the initiation of that button in there for you to be able to hit that different price, that's a whole bit. That's not just a button. That's a whole different pricing system. So that means that the insurance company are in 100% agreement with what I'm telling you now. The insured is due. If they go out there and do work on their deal, they're due money no matter what. How much? That depends on what they did. Again, the facts of the loss. The facts of the loss will tell you. And our first question to them is, what'd you do? And I don't want to hear no bullshit. I tell them every time, if I feel even the slightest bit that you're not telling me the truth, my literally statement to them, you lie to a whole bunch of people and I don't give a shit. But you tell me the truth, you tell me exactly what happened, and then we'll go from there. Oftentimes shit is covered just because, well, for instance, you walk into a structure and you see one leak on one side of the roof, that on one side of the ceiling that looks like it's been going on for a while. There's some mold. Then you go to the other side of the ceiling and what you see is a new leak. This is a fresh leak. A seasoned adjuster will walk over and go to that first leak, look up there and go, damn, that looks like that just happened. And the insured will nod their head. Yes, yes. They feel like we're buddies and we're going on. Next thing you know, they bring them back over here and go, okay, yeah, that looks like it's been going on for some time, doesn't it? Well, yeah. You get a denial back saying this is a long-term leak, and this just is an extension of that other leak. Typical. Okay, let's move through. Page 17. Okay, in relation to when you're supposed to be working on a claim, and you as a PIA, you as anybody, and you know, when you go around, even if you're a contractor and even if you're states that don't have UPA, I don't like UPA. That's not a conversation from here. It's a bunch of bullshit, baseball bat. I don't like it, but you got to be aware of it and you got to stay the hell away from it so you don't get in trouble. But if you're telling insurers that you can help them on their claim, hey, I'm a contractor and I can help you on this claim, they can then bring you into court and sue you for some things because you didn't understand what's going on. And you didn't have the ability to actually represent them. For PAs who are actually licensed, if you don't read this policy and figure out what you're supposed to be doing, then you're going to have a lot of problems. For instance, this is a new mandatory endorsement that allows us to settle a claim for covered property at cash value if you fail to notify us of the loss within 180 days from the day the loss occurs. Not knowing something simple like that can invalidate coverage. Say you're a contractor and you talk to these people and told them you'd help them out with their insurance claim. You had 150 claims come in. You were doing all of these roofs and they were kind of put on the back burner because you had to fight for their money. And you didn't file the claim, you didn't do whatever you were going to do, and you're now in lots of trouble. But all of this is going to be inside of the contract.
So, Cal, just a general question for while you're talking about what's in the contract, the debris removal, as far as applying that additional percentages to coverages. Can you touch on that if you have a chance during this?
Absolutely, because it's bullshit. Yeah. The additional coverage is, think about additional coverages when you say it. It's additional coverage. It does not come into play until the policy has been exhausted. Now, I'm tickled at Joshua because he went and did him some research.
Good job, Josh.
He found this document here, and it changes things. But you know, even if you read this, This Bill of Rights is a summary of your rights and does not become a part of your policy. Texas Department of Insurance adopted the Bill of Rights and requires insurance companies to provide you a copy when they issue your policy. Then it goes on to say, Texas law gives you certain rights regarding your homeowner's dwelling and renter's insurance. This Bill of Rights identifies your rights specified by rule, by statute, but does not include all of your rights. Also, some exceptions to the rights are not listed here. Legislative or regulatory change or statutes rules may affect your rights as an insured. Now, if you look at that statement right there, this is supposed to be the Holy Grail. But inside of this UPC policy, they've installed a clause that doesn't belong. Some of these don't apply to you. Some of these do. No, motherfucker, what they do is they apply to everybody. You don't get to walk off. Now, there is in Texas and in all, I think almost all states at this point, there's a difference to where we have a surplus lines. And that's something that I will hit on. I'm glad I even thought of that. Surplus lines is become a big thing in Texas. And what typically happens is when people figure out how to file claims, the insurance companies, the carriers, they stick them over to the surplus lines because they have a different set of rules. One of the main ones that you can think about is we have 5 business days to pay once they know they owe. So the carrier says, hey, we owe you $487,000. Bang. From this point right now, you have 5 business days to get that check in the U.S. mail and have it postmarked. If you don't, penalties start accruing on that day. From the date of loss. They don't start on that day. They go back to the date of loss and come back forward. And I need to check on that and make double sure that it's retroactive, but I believe it is. I believe it goes back to the date of loss. So Sean will come in somewhere at some point in time and correct me if I'm wrong. I found a squirrel. Where are we at? This is what I'm talking about.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about the Bill of Rights, and you were speaking about the
yes, giving you,
and
they're inserting things that don't belong. And what it does is it gives insureds, people that are messing with this, even a lot of attorneys, the idea that they have something different that they can do. No, this is the law right here. That's why they're making you install it inside of all of these things. Okay, let me see.
so they reference the law, they just don't want to follow it.
Yeah, and then I also want to look at something else. Texas specifically, about 6 or 7 years ago, they changed, it was like 6 years ago, 2017. In the legislative body, they made some changes about the contracts, some things that they wanted to see go differently inside of the contracts. One of those changes was specifically changing our name from public adjuster to public insurance adjuster. We had to go back on all the contracts, everything that we had and everything that was state approved. We had to go back and put public. We had to install the word insurance. Now, when we look at the what I have highlighted here, Public Insurance Council, nobody save the public insurance adjuster and the attorney that is on the insured side can represent the insured. That is the public. That is the whole thing about what's going on and what's been going on. We were here first. We're back in law as far back as 1895. I cannot find anywhere, anytime close to that era, where we talked about anything from the insurance company save what they called an assessor. But the assessor had nothing to do with assessing damages. The assessor went out post underwriting, assessed the value of the structure, and that's what they were assessing was what that structure was worth, not what an actual catastrophic loss or any kind of loss that they were covering at that point of time did. So at some point, early 1900s, even in 1896, I have an article, or I have the actual law where the case, they vilified public adjusters. And when I say vilified, they talked about us as if we were, they called us criminals. They called us all kinds of bad things that you could ever think about. And this was back in 1896. And what you must realize, today when they talk, they speak with the mode of decorum because they know it's being recorded and that people can look at, index it, and find it very quickly with Google and everything else, just like we do with this policy. I can find anything in this policy you want with Control F. As long as you download it, and if you know what you're looking for, Control F is your best friend. You can get anywhere you want to get in this document. This wasn't like this when they made these laws and when they did this shit. They've erased our history. We're one of the oldest professions in the world. Nobody knows about us. In the state of Texas, one of the largest states in the nation, one of the largest contingencies of public adjusters in the nation, we have less than 1,000 combined resident and non-resident public adjusters in this state. To one of the most profitable professions that I could ever even think about. How does that happen? And it's not like you got to go to college for 4 years to get a degree. You don't have to do anything but pass a dumbass test. And the test is simple. It's based upon policy. You do that, you become a public adjuster, but there's less than 1,000 of us.
I'll tell you, that's the exact reason I moved to Texas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's everywhere. We have one of the largest contingencies. It's not all over the place. It's the same everywhere. You go to Oklahoma, and you know when we were doing we still do stuff in Oklahoma, but I did have an office there for about 8 years. I think there was 40 of us in the entire state. Utah had when Jensen came to the boot camp, he was one of only 2 PAs in the whole state.
Yeah. It's Florida has an abundance, but that's really the only state that has.
Well, they really don't. And if you start to understand what I'm telling you now, the insurance company shouldn't be doing what they're doing. The insurance should hire a professional. Everything's inside of the policy to handle it. And that's what's supposed to have been going on. The insured is supposed to hire an outside professional. And they say, well, you're not biased. You get 10%. I do get 10%. But what happens when I commit fraud? Oh, shit, I go to jail, huh? It's the same thing that's supposed to be keeping you honest. But see, for us, if we do anything wrong, if you see any PA that gets in trouble, what happens? We see a media frenzy. They just and we feed into it. We click, and every time we click, we raise the ratings and the rankings of that post or whatever it is, instead of leaving it alone and letting it go die. Every time we click it, every time we look at it, every time that we share it, we add and contribute to the viral moments of what's going on. And if you really want to look at the insurance process, we're doing the same damn thing. If you could understand that process with the social media, what's going on in this insurance deal is the same thing. If we're not on the same page and we're not understanding that you got to read this contract, you've got to understand it, digest it, and apply it to the facts of every loss. And if that's done, when it's done, then we're able to shoot down to hold on a second here. 19.
What are you doing?
I'm looking through, I made a bunch of notes. I got prepared actually. I certainly 100% did not expect Joshua to get up in his opening statement and say we're in agreement.
Well, we're in agreement, Cal, but there's still, if it wasn't for the Texas Bill of Rights within the policy, I still would say that the language exists, that the conflicting language.
We're gonna go there, but that's state law. So the policy, it can't. Yeah. It's like asking you for all your documents and asking you for the for your tax returns. Just because the policy says that you can ask me from, you can ask me all day long. Doesn't make it legal. And if I know my rights and I tell you, you can go jump in the river, you're not getting shit. You're only getting what this policy specifically states out, and it does. And that's the whole thing of it. Nothing ever happens until you've completely followed the policy exactly as it points out. Now, some of them, and really there's only a handful of policies that say use our form. Most of them say, provide us with the sworn proof of loss. Another thing, sworn. You need to check your state laws. You need to talk to your attorney, whoever you have that's on there. If I don't even know, I think we've got a couple of attorneys on here. Travis is here, some other people. It's state law specific as to what qualifies as a sworn statement. Typically, sworn statement is I attest under penalty of perjury that the above statement is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, and you sign that and you date that. That is a sworn statement. That's what almost every single policy requires, not a notarized statement. And remember why? The insured was not supposed to have to go hop in the damn car and drive over to the mailbox place and pay $8 to get a notary and then drive back. And it's not just that, it's the liability of what happens when you leave your house and you go out somewhere else. The chances of something happening to you, everything's been fine. You've been great all your life, never had an accident ever. You go to get the damn notary and total your damn car. Wouldn't you have totaled the car if you wouldn't have been going to get the notary? No, see, the drafters of the original 165 line policy were very smart. They were very, very crafty and intelligent in putting together a minimalistic ideal of what coverage is supposed to look like. Everything that we're seeing now is the effects of when that came out, of them tearing it back down, little by little, piece by piece, and like piranhas. They're absolutely like piranhas. They're not attacking it from one angle. You throw a piece of meat into a piranha tank, and they literally swarm that thing and eat it from the outside in conjunction. The insurance companies have gotten very good at doing that. But I do believe that they're on the run. I believe that what's going on now, what we're seeing with the desk adjusting, is them trying to get back before we get them. Get back to a point where they're the ones doing the adjusting inside like they're supposed to, and they're not trying to con everybody in the world to believe that it's a good idea to send the guy that owes you the money to tell you how much. That's ridiculous. On its face value, that's ridiculous. Well, it would be breaking the law if they didn't. It's illegal to break the law. It's absolutely illegal. I have one response to that. Is speeding illegal? Absolutely. How many of us that are in this thread right now? Well, I'm a habitual speeder. I don't mean to, but I just kind of, I run fast everywhere I go. That's just the way it is. Okay, we're going to run down through.
I don't know what you're talking about, Cal.
Yep.
Either.
55 everywhere I go, 55.
That's it.
Okay, this right here, number 13, is just a simple justification. Things are based upon 10%. I've heard all over my whole career, and especially from Southern Florida public adjuster, we could never make it on 10%. We have got to charge 20 or 25 or whatever they're trying to charge, and telling me that it could not be done. I beg to differ. We don't charge more than 10%. I don't give a shit what the state says, whatever's going on. 10% is a fair amount for us to perform those duties. However, here's the kicker. If you go out, if the policy says, submit to us within 60 days a sworn proof of loss, the request portion is not in there. And you don't submit that proof of loss, this thing ends up in a lawsuit, and then you are trying to say that your 10% fees are owed. My 10% fees are owed, and this is in front of a judge. And the opposing counsel, really all they got to say is, okay, let me go to the duties after loss, and let's start with number one. As we check these things off here, if you've completed this whole list, then I will agree with you 100%. Your fee is due and payable at the 10% value of the contract. However, if you didn't get one of these, what that actually means is not only did you not get paid, but you harmed the insured by not putting them in a position to be able to go to litigation like they're supposed to be. That's why you have a fucking license. You're supposed to know what you're supposed to be doing and what's supposed to be going on. And if you don't, you better have some really good errors and omissions. And I suggest wholeheartedly, get to the boot camp, get to Matthew Mulholland's, go to the conferences, not only ours, but other people, meet with like-minded professionals, speak about things logically. Think about this simple fact. We go into a burned house and we walk in there with the adjuster, and the first thing that we all look at each other in the face and go, yeah, this is about 50% damaged. We would all agree that this house is 50% damaged. The house is a $200,000 home. The insurance carrier sends back a valuation for $38,000. If the son of a bitch was insured for $200,000, why wouldn't, at 50% of the value, and we agreed 50% of the place is damaged, why wouldn't it have started at $100,000? See, we're not putting logic to loss and saying, okay, we agree this is what it is, and you're saying that your numbers are correct. However, let's look at the insurance. You agree it's at 50%. We're in a complete agreement with that. And it's actually going to be more because it costs more to go in and take shit out than it does just to go in and put it in there in the beginning. I'd rather build on a new slab than I would go in and try to mess with anything any day. Yeah, let me put it up the way I want to put it up. Oh, I got to work with this, put this in there into the, no, shit, no. Okay, let's move on really quickly because I don't want to take too much more time up. It's Saturday night. Okay, this is important. For you folks that have people that are going through divorces, you're a licensed insurance professional. This is just a one-off that you can help your people with. When they, the divorces are ugly. I wish we didn't have them, but we do. And when they do happen, the best way that we can do is that everybody do just like the policy. Go follow the rules and everything will be fine. But they can actually have their name put on the policy the way that it's supposed to be put in here. And this is in the Bill of Rights in Texas. They can get it to where let's just, for instance, the husband and wife are not amicable. The wife has control of the house. There's an insurance loss. The draft is written to both of them. And he refuses to sign the draft, which means that she can't get compensated and you can't get compensated. So I would advise people as a professional that that are going through that this is an option for them. You can go down there and get that house insured under your own, and you should because you're the one that's responsible for it if you're living in it, depending on their terms of their divorce. Okay, number 29. Okay, if you look down through this whole thing, what you're going to find is that nowhere in this document with the Bill of Rights does it tell the insured that they have a right to hire a licensed public insurance adjuster. They talk about settlements, lawsuits. Who's the only other option? We are. We are the only other option, and we are not in here, and we are in the legislative body. Where the shit goes back to what I'm saying. They've completely annihilated the profession. You can't find any documentation on what's going on. I'm a damn good research person. I go into the Google machine and every other method that you can imagine to go looking for what I could find. Can't find it. I've got very few articles on what's going on and where we originated from. The earliest I can charge them is 1895. But if we were in a lawsuit in 1895, that means what? Means we were here before that. So we know that's the earliest place that we can find it. We cannot find those in that same realm. Okay. Again, them putting shit in their policy. Generally, within 15 calendar days, your insurance company must acknowledge receipt of your claim and request any additional information. That's a damn lie. That's an absolute outright lie.
100%.
Yeah. Well, no, that's actually right. No, I'm wrong because I was reading it wrong. That's right. They have 15 calendar days, which is consecutive days.
Well, the word generally is the lie.
Yeah, the generally is a lie. But I was looking at that and I got crossways. I thought that's the first time I've seen it that way. It is because it's not right.
Yeah, the word generally does not apply there. It's
calendar is
what you must do.
Business days, and it says it when it comes back down here, 15 business days. Okay, now, hold on just a second.
But you look at the trickery at generally. If an insured is reading that, they're going to think, oh, all right, if they don't meet this 15 days, it's okay because it's general.
Well, it's a loosey-goosey thing. That's not loosey-goosey. We have some of the best prompt payment statutes in the world.
Yep.
And we have those prompt statements, and they forget this. Somehow everybody is forgetting. The whole reason that the prompt payment statutes exist is because they were caught so many times doing what they're so good at, which is pulling the money. You have to understand all of this, the whole thing, everything that's going on is about money. And it's not about how much money I can make. It's about how much money they can keep in their account. Warren Buffett talks about it, the float. He explains it better than anybody I know. It is the money that they owe that is off the ledger, but it's still where? In the bank account. Yeah, and they can, as long as it's in that bank account, it can hedge. Simple things. There's simple fixes to this entire thing. For instance, professionals should be almost everybody in here should be a professional in this industry. How many insureds have you ever met that said, you know, I don't want to cash this check because I'm settling with the insurance company?
Too many.
Yeah.
Way too many, way too
Okay,
many.
let's look at that. Let's put some logic to it. Let's just drop some simple logic on it. The state legislative body in every single state should add a requirement to the insurance code that says every draft that has come out of an insurance company must have the following statement: I relinquish no rights by cashing this check. Done. That whole thing is done and over with. Why won't they do that? The son of a
Because they don't want
bitches
you
that
to
are in the
cash it.
Congress are shareholders. They're either shareholders, they are getting profit off of it, or they are actually agents. In Texas here, what you'll find out in our legislative body, most of the whole insurance commission that is there specifically for insurance and the Senate committee, they all are tied to insurance. So every bad legislation that they make, everything that would save the insurance company money and cost the insured money is actually saving who money? The
Them.
very people that are writing the bills. Yeah, it's a bunch of shit. Okay, let's move on. You know what? I'm done. We're an hour in, and we could just go on, and this is what we have the boot camp for.
So
But I think we're at a point where we understand what's going on, and I'll put a link in next camp. We have a camp every month. My suggestion, you go Steve Patrick, Tony Rugos, Joseph there, anybody that's been to this boot camp will tell you without fail, you will come out of this boot camp with a completely different mindset, a process, all the contracts, our contracts alone in every state that we've worked in are worth millions of dollars. Why are they worth millions of dollars? Because we fought every department of insurance. We fought every dirty ass insurance company and the best money that they could buy. And guess what? We're still here. Not only are we still here, we're teaching this, which was their worst nightmare. This is what they, back in 2015, they were like, we did over 100 depositions in 1 year. I did in Oklahoma. Background, you know, Larry Bass, shout out to him, and Chip Merlin with Merlin Law Group. The local Oklahoma attorneys would not take the small claims. So I would not let loose of the big claims. And I had a bulk of 128 claims that we were getting close to statute on. And I was extraordinarily concerned. And I brought Merlin in because Merlin actually had funds. He could withstand what was coming because he had money in his bank. Be careful about getting attorneys that don't have a bank account or don't have a line of credit. They don't necessarily have to have a bank account. But if they're doing anything at all, a bank will absolutely lend them money based upon litigation that's coming in. However, when you go out and file 128 lawsuits at one time, you're talking about a massive amount of time, money, effort by everybody involved. The kicker of that is Oklahoma typically has 10 to 15 property and casualty lawsuits a year. A year. We put 15 years worth of claims in front of them in less than 2 weeks. It took us 2 weeks to get all the shit filed, but we dropped this on a system that was only prepared for 10 or 15. They retaliated, everybody. It got crazy, and they come after us. They come after Merlin, but we won. At the end of the day, they settled every single one of those claims at the numbers that we came up there with originally. So we were very successful, but it taught us a whole lot of stuff. And out of those 100 depositions, and we're talking 8-hour depositions on video camera with 3 or 4 attorneys, and then them taking the depositions back and comparing them with other ones and then coming back into that. If you want to wonder where some of this stuff come from is there was literally some intense shit that went on. But at the end of it, it came to a point where they began to realize what he's doing is he's absorbing anything that we find out that he's figuring out that he could have done better or that he should have done differently. He's filing it and he's changing the program to include those things. And all of them had to do with coming back to that policy and reading that policy and performing under that policy. We still won, we still got the deal, but it's simply because they're afraid that if they expose that what's going on, it means the whole thing comes unglued. The second that you realize that this policy is the king and that it doesn't make a shit even if they have managed repair program. Managed repair program is not shit to defeat. We've never had to deal with one when we took the claim on, had them come back and say, we're going to have our people come in. That's fantastic. What's their name? I need everything. I need all of their stuff because we've performed under the policy. We have a detailed scope. They need to bid on this right now and agree without any change orders whatsoever, unless we find what? Something that we did not, and I'll use a countertop, Formica countertop or granite or whatever. If we're replacing the cabinets are damaged, but the countertop is not. The countertop gets a detach and a reset. Why? Because the son of a bitch is not broken right now. Now, if you take it off and it breaks in the removal of it, then we're going to supplement because the son of a bitch broke. But in order for us to be legitimate and do what we're supposed to do, 9 out of 10 is going to break. Is it broke now? That's the question. Is it broke now? And if the answer is no, then our valuation should absolutely state what is there. No figuring, no what I think. Steve hit it pretty good on a post that he put down there when they're trying to call it an estimate. It's not a fucking estimate. We have each line item broken out an exactament. If there's something here that you don't like, show me what it is. You have that right. But if you can, and you can't tie it back to a legitimate reason back in the policy, that's where the bad faith comes in, right there. It will not come in until the insured is performed first, because why? And we'll hit this one part before we go. Let me see here. And there's our option right below it. And this is why I like this part. This I actually had to go back over later, but we got into some other stuff, which we always do. Okay, suit against us. No action can be brought against us unless there has been full compliance with all of the terms under Section 1 of this policy, and the action is started within 2 years after the date of loss. They didn't say some of the provisions. They didn't say half of the provisions. They didn't say 99.99%. They said all of them. You must perform the duties after a loss incomplete. The way the boot camp teaches it is the paperwork that we give you and the contracts that we give you. If you follow the contracts, you're following the proof of loss, as almost every single standard policy has them written. You've already done that by the time that you submit when you submit the notice, the valuation to the insurance company combined, you have a signed sworn statement of loss. The notice has the insured signature on it. We have an email in our database where the insured was notified we talked with them when we went out, we did the assessment. We came back, did the valuation, and then sent it to them and asked them to review it and look over it and approve it. If you see anything that you don't understand on there, please contact us. If you see anything on there specifically that you think is missing, let us know. But the most important thing is if there's something on there that you don't think that is owed for, that you don't understand or think that it's too high, that's what I want you to talk about, because that's the thing that the insurance company's going to say, well, you think this is high? You don't understand why it's high. For instance, when we walk into a house and we do drywall anywhere, we do drywall in any room for any reason whatsoever in a 12-room house, where is the dry, no matter how much we try to protect things, where's the drywall dust going to be?
Everywhere it can be.
Everywhere. Every crack, crevice, top of a hinge, door trim, crown molding, base molding, it's going to be everywhere. Was that shit there before the loss? Absolutely not. So that's supposed to be clean. So when you see that we have $2.50 a square foot to get the inside of the house moved around, put outside, whatever needs to be done with the storage, come back in, put a blueprint. Think about your photographs at home. Joshua, you're moving in. Are you moved in yet?
Not completely, no.
Yeah, and that's my fucking straight exact point. Why aren't you moved in yet completely?
Because it takes a lot of time and effort to get everything unpacked.
And you got to figure out where shit goes, right? This goes here and this goes there. Now, see, before this loss, all that shit was already there. That picture was absolutely 18 inches from the left wall, 16 inches from the top. That's where it said. Is it going to go back? No. And the painter, what's the painter supposed to do when he paints?
Take it down.
Remove
and-
all nails, remove everything else, caulk all holes, spackle everything, and then close it up, which means those nails and those holes shouldn't be there. So is that shit just going to jump back up there on the wall? Absolutely not. And you'll have an adjuster argue with you till you explain these things to him. Hell, I'll walk right over to a countertop or to a cabinet, put my finger across the trim and go, this is what I'm fucking talking about. Who's going to clean this shit up? And it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So making the demands where they comply with the policy and doing it for us, the way that we try to do it and make sure that it happens every single time is that when we contact the insurance company the very first time, we're already done. The rest of this is a courtesy to go out and meet you out there on site so that if you have any questions whatsoever about what we've done or why we've done it, now's the time for you to answer those or to ask them and we'll answer them. And then at that point, whatever that is, it's Don. At that point, it doesn't matter what they do. And this is probably maybe the most crucial thing that I want to get across tonight. They're not the boss of shit. They don't run anything. Don't let them run a single thing because they are not the boss of anything. This document that we're looking at right here that all of us are sharing and we're getting educated on and we're understanding what this document means and where it goes, that's the boss. That and the facts of the law, so it doesn't make a shit what hurts their feelings, what doesn't hurt their feelings. And even as we read this, we have to always read it with a grain of salt. Give us all your documents. Well, if we give them to you, then that's what was supposed to happen. However, legally, you're not allowed all of our documents. And all I got to do is tell you no. So the 15 days, the 15 calendar days to begin. Hold on just a second. Where's that at? Didn't like that shit, did it?
Yes. The one thing I've noticed is while you're looking for that, Cal, the changes for the longest time, the word opinion didn't exist anywhere in any policies. And now you see it all the time. Our opinion and our opinion.
Never mind. Go ahead.
I would say, yeah, it didn't exist. The word opinion wasn't in a policy. You could search it and it wasn't there. Now they're starting to put in there our opinion.
Well,
so,
and it doesn't mean anything.
Well, it doesn't.
What's your opinion? You mean the guy that tells me the money's telling me that he don't? That's his opinion based upon some other guy that he pays consistently every day so that he can pay his truck payment, his house payment. You're telling me that all of these people that are relying upon this income are out here being honest? You've lost your motherfucking mind. Okay, hold on. Let me find where I'm looking for this at.
Well, I just found it interesting
right
that it started to put it in there. So.
Right there.
Okay, see number 2 right there. Begin. Words are important. That word begin doesn't mean finish. It means begin. And what it means to begin is for me to tell the insured what they need to give me in order to get this claim done. However, it's already been told to the insured via the duties after a loss. They have already told you. That's why our method of doing it first means that on the day that we put the claim in, you have everything in your hand you need to close this claim out, and you now have 15 business days to make your determination. And once that determination is made, then you have 5 business days to pay. So if you take the full 15 business days, that's fantastic. As soon as that full 15 business days is up, we're starting the clock again on the 5 business days, and you got a complaint for not responding within the 15 business days, and you also got a complaint for not paying within the 5 business days. But it doesn't happen unless we put the proof of loss in. Now, if they want to choose their option to repair, go and take that liability. Go on and grab a hold of it. You say that your guy will do it, but he's not charging for OSHA. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. You tell that son of a bitch, take the job. Day one, me, my camera crew will be out there with filming them without OSHA on. We will call up. I'm not shitting a pound. Yeah, and I don't care what the insured does. My job is to put the stuff on there that was supposed to. Let's look at the flip side that I didn't put OSHA on there. The contractor gets up on the roof, a guy falls off, and heaven forbid, he didn't kill himself, he broke his neck, which is even worse. It means this guy's going to be on lifelong medical. They're fucked up. And all of this could have been prevented if we would have followed the rules. And here's what's going to happen. A very smart attorney is going to get a hold of the insured. They're going to sue the insured. They're going to sue the contractor and anybody else that was involved in this claim. And who else would that include? The damn PA. And if the PA didn't put the OSHA on there, it's a federal law, not suggestive. So if they didn't put it on there, then you're now liable also for the liability area, but to get a hickey on your license and maybe perhaps lose your license because you didn't do what the federal law required you to do. They would try to have you believe that it's okay to put these things on there and not put them on there. Now it's a seesaw for them because if they try to convict you, then they prove that they were wrong, correct? Let's have one final thought. Demo to roofing. The company that sells workman's comp is the same company that sell all of this insurance. They require any person on the roof to be what? Classified as a what? As a roofer. Yeah. Doesn't make a shit what that cat's doing. If he's up there, he's being paid workers' comp roofer rate. Yep. Period. End of story. The same insurers that require them to be classified like that then turn around and automatically make Exactament default to demo that removes those costs that would be taking care of what? The roofer comp that they're charging for. Yeah. That's what we're up against. That's literally what we're up against is that type of mentality.
A fun fact, Cal, on the Exactimate. And anybody can look this up and you can see it happen right in front of your face if you try it. But if you go to Exactimate and you run every roofing line item that there is and you go check every labor code, and I've done this just to prove a point, that only the expensive line items come through the demo. There's a bunch of them that actually auto result to roofing and roofing. So some of them are RFG and just the expensive ones go to demo. So I agree. There was a change about 1.5 years ago, but it's funny how, like you said, those line items, the same people who sell it, they'll have the cheap ones. Oh, well, this is roofing and roofing, but the big ticket items, well, let's put those as demo. So pay attention to that for sure.
Well, there's that. And then what we're also seeing and what I believe is going on is that, they have an unholy union between the insurance companies and Exactament, which I like Exactament. That's our biggest baseball bat. May not like all the things about it, but if we use that program, there's shit out of luck. That's the most why. If we get to a courtroom, there ain't nobody that can say this ain't the product that's supposed to be being used or is the most widely. Everything that they've touted to get it here is exactly what puts them in a bad place trying to say it ain't no good. That's your product. It is what it is. But I believe that they have programmers that are very smart and they understand what's going on and say that we know all the data. We know that on 7 p.m. on Thursday evening is that we get the most amount of, and I'm not saying that's when it is. I'm just saying that they have the data to say that's when we have the most people inside of Exactament working. So let's set up a deal every Tuesday from 10 p.m. to or whenever that window is, that it automatically defaults to flip every single item inside of Exactament to be demo. Now, things like the roof, that's a kind of a gray area because there's not really whether it's supposed to be the licensed guy up there doing it or not. However, when we jump over to a licensed trade, HVAC, electrical, anything that would require a licensed trade person, if that thing says that the demo is supposed to be done by a demo, and that's what we're seeing when this thing gets flipped, is that it flips to that. And it's even saying that those trades deals are supposed to be done by the demo person. That's illegal. That'll get your ass thrown in jail. State law is very clear. If you're fucking with that, and there's a reason behind it. Nobody knows who put this thing in here. If you pull it out, there's a rat's nest of wires behind it. We've all seen it. If you've ever done construction, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, I'll just pull this. God damn, what is that? There's a nest of 48 things that they've added on at some point in time that's in there. You're going to burn the whole house down. Or you don't understand what grounding is. You leave a wire hanging out. The kid runs by there and catches their leg, electrocutes the child. 110 is worse than anything else because it gets a hold of you and won't let you go. So, there's a reason specifically why we're supposed to be doing the things that we are. So we need to watch out for those things. Anybody have any quick questions before we go?
Yeah, Cal, my understanding is that Exactimate was originally designed for the flood insurance people, and I forget whether it's written on Oracle or SAP, but it automatically sets to demo because the back end database automatically goes there. And I've had that argument with them.
Yeah, that's incorrect. And it's easily findable. Stephen Harmon's got a wealth of information on where Exactament came
As I said, that's what I heard.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people out there. Exactament actually was a couple of good old boys. They needed a system and they built it. It's like a nuclear bomb. The guy that built the nuclear bomb never thought that they were going to go take over and kill a whole bunch of people with it. They were thinking about energy. They were thinking about, saving the planet. However, some nefarious folks with different intent got a hold of it and used it for something completely different. Exactament is the exact same way. It has good intent. There's good things on it that should happen. But the people that are behind it don't have the best of intentions. I do want to go to one more thing. I promised I would talk about debris removal.
So while you look for that, the main thing I just want to bring, because I've gotten a lot of PMs, a lot of questions about it, and then sharing the knowledge for these total losses is where that additional debris removal applies.
Okay, right here. We're gonna pop it right in the head. Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna read this out loud just so that we can all understand what's going down. This is additional coverages. Additional coverage will never come into any of the conversation at all unless the policy somewhere allows them to, or the policy has been exhausted. And I would say that ordinance and law is one of the keen ones that you can look at where the policy doesn't have to be exhausted in order for ordinance and law to take effect. But debris removal is not one of those. And we'll read it real quick and it says what they do. We will pay your reasonable expense for the removal of debris of covered property if a peril insured against that applies to the damaged property causes the loss, or ash, dust, or particles from a volcanic eruption that has caused direct loss to a building or property contained in a building. This is the key right here.
Yep.
This expense is included in the limit of liability that applies to the damaged property. If the amount to be paid for the actual damage to the property plus debris removal expense is more than the limit of liability, means it has exhausted the policy and we need more money. It's here. An additional 5% of that limit is available for such expenses. It's that simple.
Now, Cal,
in the limit of liability. Go ahead.
So for that 5%, and again, this is one we run across California all the time for the wildfires, and we include it in ours, but it's a big fight and a misunderstanding. So that 5%, is that just of coverage A or is that of coverage C as well? Does that apply to contents additionally and additional other structures?
At the top, this only applies to coverage A. Yeah, let me see here. Play it up there. Question again, Joseph?
So again, it depends on the policy. It's just another point of reading the policy, but that 5% additional debris removal for total losses, and in California, some of the policies, it's that 5% we added to coverage A and we added to coverage C because the contents that were all burned up had to be removed as well.
And what we would typically do would go to coverage C contents and we would look at what they say.
I just want to bring that to everybody's attention because there's a lot more total losses happening out there.
Okay, there's right now from where we're at the debris removal, is there any more questions about whether or not, and here's what this means. When you see a PWI, when you see a paid when incurred, when it's grayed out and the line's marked, and it says debris removal, and this is a cost incurred basis. It is not a cost incurred basis. The only way it would become a cost incurred basis is if the policy had been exhausted.
Yep.
Almost all paid when incurred that you see now is illegitimate, specifically with debris removal and ordinance and law. If I have a commercial building or a residential building, doesn't matter. If I had the building and the building had a actual roof on it, it had a certificate of occupancy, a green tag, and everything was there and it was insurable, and the whole thing was done, that's where I started at. That was my starting point. The policy of indemnity was bought to make sure that I'm never left in less as long as I meet my co-insurance policy and I pay my deductible. Everything else should be covered. If we go out and this flat roof had 1/2 inch insulation, 1 inch insulation, and now under the new 2014 code, it's got to be back to almost 4 inches or a little over, whatever it is. But the insurance company says, okay, we're going to pay this on ordinance and law, or we won't pay it because it's ordinance and law. That is not an ordinance and law issue. That's an indemnity issue. You didn't buy an ordinance and law policy. You didn't buy anything else except for a policy of indemnity. If you had a green tag and a certificate of occupancy to be in that house, that building, that whatever it was prior to the loss, the policy puts you right back there to the limits. Now we'll look at a situation where if the insured had $100,000 coverage, they had a $10,000, 10% limit for ordinance and law. If the loss comes up and you say, well, the loss is $110,000, and you go, okay, well, they're underinsured. Well, wait, let's look at the policy. No, they have $10,000 additional coverage for ordinance and law. Was there anything inside of that dwelling that was against the current code and ordinance that would need to be paid additional to brought back up? Well, matter of fact, the house was aluminum wiring, and that's what caused the fire. Okay, so we'll take the aluminum wiring out and we'll separate the aluminum wiring and everything that went with it and put that under ordinance and law because it's a requirement that wasn't there before and the policy has been exhausted and we need more money. That's where that $10,000 becomes available in those situations. Now, ordinance and law has another situation that becomes involved where it's not, the policy doesn't have to be exhausted. Say we have a home and the kitchen burns, the small kitchen fire does not exhaust the policy limits by any means. The meter is right outside of the kitchen window. When the fire department came out, they put the fire out and they pulled the meter just in case, as they typically do. The city says, or the electric company says, hey, before we go back out there and turn it on, you need to have the city come out and give us the green tag that we can plug that power back in. The city comes back out and says, you know, all of this shit is fine. You can put it back on. However, that fucking in-law suite that you got over there tied in illegally, that's not fine. And we will not put this meter back until that in-law suite is brought up to code on the electrical to get it tied in. Okay, so we have a situation now where the policy is not exhausted. This ordinance and law issue is holding up the actual structure from being put back together because it's not attached to the building. It's something completely different and it was not affected by the fire. If they have ordinance and law at this point in time, ordinance and law will jump out up to the limits and pay for that service to be put back there. Why? Because they paid an additional amount for the ordinance and law. If they didn't have ordinance and law, guess what? You're shit out of luck. The insured has to come up with the money to put it because you didn't have that extra insurance that paid for it. If it would have been on the actual dwelling, should have been covered all day long under the limits of the policy. Questions? And this was recorded. Everybody's aware of that, I hope.
Yeah. And also, Cal, I would say as far as the debris removal too, there's additional language on, I think, page 44 under ordinance and law, 11B, which refers back to 11A.
$44? Oh,
Page,
44 of the PDF?
No, I'm sorry. If 40, page 8 of 24.
What page of the PDF is it?
It's page 44 in the PDF. Right there. And if you look at B, then it'll refer you back to A. It's saying that you also can use a portion of this for when it's resulting from a peril insured event.
I haven't seen that specific part, and I don't know why, but that's good.
Yeah, it's some policies that's getting added in a lot, and then appreciate you bringing that up, Josh. That's
Look at what they're trying to do. They're trying to wrap all these coverage under having this ordinance and law. You shouldn't have, what I'm getting at, you shouldn't have to have the ordinance and law to begin with, and there's coverage all over. I've been hearing for the past 6 months that all of these people are underinsured and the insurance market's going to crumble because they've been underinsured. I want you to understand what that means. It means this people that spend all this money on lobbyists, on attorneys to make all of the money that they possibly could. and even have charged illegally. Here in Texas, we had a lawsuit with them for like 18 years, 17, 18 years. And they finally settled for $385 million for all of the overcharged premiums that they've done to Texas. For 17 years, they had $385 million, and the use of that, they could hedge it wherever they wanted to hedge it at. And it was found to have been absolutely wrong. And they didn't ever pay it till it became a point where it was going to cost them more money than they were going to make. So we need to get our shit together. I don't care if you're a contractor, appraiser, I don't care what it is that you call yourself. Get to some of these conferences, get around some other people that don't have the same ideals that you have right now. If you're hearing the same old shit and you're comfortable in it, something's going on wrong. Joseph, is the boot camp uncomfortable?
No, I've taken my whole staff and team twice, and we're all about to go back again, because every time you go, you hear something different. You get a new idea. Like I say in a lot of my posts, one word can change your whole claim handling experience, something you may have missed the first time or the second time. So same thing with the conference. You go to a different conference, or you may have went to the boot camp, or you go back again, you may pick something else up, or something may have changed that's going to increase your knowledge to help you even further. You got to go. You just got to be there. You got to.
The networking. There's some good people in this industry. There's some bad ones, but the good people far outnumber the bad ones by far. I've been around for a good long while now. As we started to do more of the boot camp and the conferences and things of that nature, I've met a whole lot of the people in this industry. And for the most part, 98% of the people inside of this industry want one thing: to do the right thing. If we can all start with that single common ground, follow the rules, follow what we've got going on, there's no reason that we can't bring this industry together and be successful at not trying to harm the insurance company, not trying to harm the insured, but simply trying to make the process go the way that it was supposed to have gone, according to that contract. When that happens, how can the insurance company be mad at me? If I made you pay what you owe, I can't make you pay any more. Where is your anger towards me at? Why do you keep saying that you paid more on a claim because I was involved without acknowledging that you owed more?
That's right.
Yeah, it started with underpaying.
Yeah. Well, and I keep saying this, one final thing. When we hear bad faith, we go out typically for us. When we take a claim that's already been in existence and we take the claim on and we get the claim paid, our fee at 10%, the insured typically pays us more than what they were paid initially, which means no matter what, out of the get-go, that's a standard 1,000%, not 100%, 1,000%.
100% every time.
People go, well, that's clear bad faith. No. And this was so hard for me to get over. No, it's not bad faith. What it is good faith. What the courts will look at it like is good faith. And why will they look at it that way? Because the insured didn't do any of this. By contract, the insurance company didn't know anything, but they were so gracious that they stepped out and they paid $15,000. Yeah, on nothing, just on your word that you had a claim, and they just came out and paid it. Because them sending their guy, them doing all of that stuff, no requirements of theirs, none. Nothing was ever supposed to happen until the insured performed by contract. This is not Cal Spoon saying that. That's what the damn contract says.
Yeah.
So once that's done, everything that comes after that changes. And all the power goes away from them. Yeah, there is no power. You can either do the right thing and your process has to get to a point where they understand that you understand. Yeah, me turning red in the face, getting high blood pressure, jumping up and down, cussing you fellas out. It doesn't do anything to get a claim paid. It makes me feel better sometimes. But as far as getting a claim paid, it's not going to do any of that. So you need to understand that there's a beginning and an ending, and it should happen within about 60 to 90 days. You shouldn't have a claim open for longer than 60, 90 days, especially in Texas. 60 to 90 days, that thing should be done. And whatever you could do or are going to do, it's done. What are you going to do by holding that claim any longer? You're going to allow them to hold that money longer. And if you performed it right, you get it into attorney's hands, and your settlements are going to come way quicker than what you think. Why? Because they don't want to see you in a courtroom when you follow this policy. I've been doing this heavily. I would file 120 lawsuits at one time. You know how many courtrooms I've seen?
Zero.
Not a single one. Been deposed over and over. But we've never even got close that I'm aware of. We've never even got to the steps before they've paid what they were supposed to pay.
That's
Now,
right.
understand that means that the insured sometimes is not the smartest person in the block. And sometimes the situation demands that they can't follow through. The insurance company knows the multipliers. So typically what happens, 60-day pre-suit demand goes out, they come back and they say, okay, we'll pay, the demand goes out for the deal and it's $150,000, and they come back and go, okay, look, we'll pay you 80 grand today. Yeah, we'll pay today 80 grand, and see, as a PA or as an attorney, we legally have to take any offer, even if it was for a half a penny, back to that insured and let that insured know. And as we should, I would want to know as well. That insured at that point in time has the option to go one of two things. That motherfucker offered me $80,000 right now. And if you think about most insureds, 60% can't afford $1,000. When they flash $80,000 in front of them, the insured's going to get, your attorney, okay, because the attorney's fees are going to come out of that. They're going to settle. You understand what I'm saying? They're settling right there, which means the bad faith is off the table. If they made a good faith offer, the insured accept that offer, the litigation is done. We're not going any further. The carriers use that to their best ability with us. That's their best tool with us, is to wait till it gets to that point and pay it then. The insured says, 80,000 today.
They make that same pause every time too.
Well, think about them going to buy the car.
Yeah.
Most 95% of folks that go in to buy a car have no clue what's going on. They walk in the door going, oh, I hope I can get this car. And then the whole process is not about how much the car is, what kind of deal you got, what the warranty is, what's going on, what your interest rates are going to be. The single and only question is what?
Can I get this car?
That motherfucker off the lot today. All that other shit that you said, I don't care. Am I going to be able to drive that car off the lot today? Yes. Show me where to sign that shit. So, we have to get out of that mentality. All right. Y'all folks have a good Saturday evening. I'm going to get off the deal here. I hope that we answered some questions. We cleared some up. I'm sure that there's a bunch more that are out there. But, the camp came specifically for a bunch of reasons. But one of them is that we can never get this in one session. What we've hit on today is a bunch of different things that we go over outside of the camp. The camp starts it from day one and goes from day one all the way to day 5. The administrative process, the legal process, it's broken down. It's a very, it's not your typical class. We don't have outside speakers come in. We don't do any of that stuff. It's literally just us in a classroom environment doing nothing but this.
Well, I just want to tell you thank you for taking your time on a Saturday, Cal. I think most of us appreciate everything and all the efforts you make for the industry as a whole. So
I appreciate that. And you should know the sincerity in that. And that's when the post blew up, I'm not trying to be argumentative. If you look at my post and what's going on, I'm trying to keep the tone down. I'm trying to keep everybody going, but I'm trying to use reason. Somehow I kind of got in the herd mentality and didn't realize that we didn't even, where's this fucking phantom policy that we're talking about? That's typically my first response is we'll bring the thing, and then we can have an argument about what it says.
Yeah, there's a part of that whole debate was still not addressed in this conference, and that would be that if you got the client, according to this policy language, you got the client on, let's just say day 30, to keep numbers simple. And at that point, the carrier has not requested a proof of loss. According to this policy, they've waived their rights to request that proof of loss. Why are you sending?
Let's stop right there in that one, and we'll take it in levels. Who is the only one in the world that can say they waive their rights? The judge. Remember, I never got to a courtroom. So what I'm doing is taking it out of all their hands. What would happen, and what always happens, and what should happen, the insured is not a professional, and they're not required to be. They didn't have no idea what's going on. But the second that you as a professional get involved, you do know what's going on, and you absolutely, and it's funny because I'll tell them you got to redo. And the insurance company say, Mr. Spoon, you don't have that kind of power. Oh, contrary. We're the only ones with the power because we're the only ones that understand what's going on. What I'm saying to you is that when we grabbed a hold of that claim and we put our contract in there and sent it to you, day one, You get a fucking do-over. You get a chance to go back and do what you're supposed to do the first time. But it also sets the clock for us that we can file complaints. We can do whatever we need to do whenever we need to do it. And whether there's a managed repair deal on there or not makes no difference to me. If they want their guy to come in there and get it after it, again, your guy's going to have to do, we've already got the scope. And if we have the scope and we have an exactment, that means that we already have what also? The price.
The price.
So he's going to say that they're doing it for any cheaper, for any reason whatsoever. What are you taking off? Nothing. Yeah, you
Got to hit the reset button every time.
And the second that you start to, and I probably, they don't do it to us. They just simply don't do it because they know what we're going to do. We're going to attack you. We're going to attack everything. That contract will never work for you again. Those people will get away from you and you'll have the worst name that you ever thought about having. Why? Because it's not right. You owe the insured what you owe them. If you want to do managed repair, if you have that clause in there, they paid, got a discount for it. That is your right as long as what those folks intend to do, bring the insured back to what? Pre-loss condition. Yeah, which means we don't have control of the contractors, but the way that we do things, we don't ever have control of the contractors. They don't have control of us. We don't have control of them. It's a completely separate deal. We don't even send them our valuations. If the insured wants to do all of that to you, then they should do all of that. And anybody that's doing this and says, well, I share them all the time. Yeah, when you go to depositions, all that shit's going to come out too. And everything that you shared, did, and was going on, that relationship's going to be found in a way that is not supposed to be happening. So in order to keep things completely clear, completely transparent, we have so many contractors that refer to us. I don't even know them. We literally have people that call us and say such and such from Steve Patrick's forum or wherever. They know who you are. They've been following you. They said, I should give you a call. And we don't ever see the contractor. We had one guy out of the freeze. That guy referred like 30 people to us before I still haven't met the guy. But it's all under the understanding that we're going to go out there and we're going to do the right thing. And if the insurance comes, this is the easiest way that I explain it. It's like you go to the prom and you take the girl to the prom, you buy the corsage, you get the limo, you do the dinner, you get to the prom, and she goes home with somebody else. Is she wifey material? Absolutely not. You don't marry that girl. Same with the insureds. If the insured wants to try to go cheaper, go try to do whatever, then by God, that's your right. But you do it with somebody else because the way that we have it set down is to do it right for us, right by the law, and to make sure that at the end of the day that we make some money. I'm not working for free. I don't need any more practice. I know exactly what I'm doing. All of that stuff is unnecessary. All right. Y'all have a good evening.
You
Just saying, appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody
Thank
have a
you.
good night.
Have a good night.